Live from downtown Vancouver at the Vancouver Film School campus, it's time for EP Live. Hey, welcome to EPN. My name is Victor Lucas, and we bring you the latest in everything cool. And it does feel like it's every single day because we were streaming on the weekend. And thank you to all of those that came down and joined us for our EP Live for Extra Life special. And thanks again to Matt Levitan and the folks at Extra Life and the folks at BC Children's Hospital for working with us to put on a great event. It was a really, really nice day. And Microsoft, the Microsoft Store, and our guests. We put up all the streams on the channel, so if you haven't checked any of those out, please do. We've got a fun show to get to for today, but what we're doing is something a little bit different. We didn't bring a guest in for today because Blake and I are on the road for the next little while. We leave on Wednesday, and what we thought is let's get a bunch of these reviews that have been circulating wrapped up today. So we've got a lot of review content, a lot of deep dives into some stuff that I've been playing and watching, and it's all sort of moving us towards the end of the year wrap-up stuff. We're going to do some buyer's guides, and we're going to do the Road to the Rocket and Ray Gun Awards and the Rocket and Ray Gun Awards, and we're also going to do something really cool and honor some of the incredible work of the last decade, because this is the last year in this decade, and there's been a lot of big changes in video games, as we know. We've got a big show, and we've got a lot to get to. Let's get started with our rundown today. It is going out to Martin Meyer, who says, great content, great presentation, keep it up. Thank you, Martin. This rundown is all yours. Nintendo has another Smash success on their hands. Super Smash Bros. Ultimate has officially become the best-selling fighting game ever. Nintendo released the news as part of their latest financial earnings report, showing that Smash has sold 15.7 million units, dethroning the previous record holder, Street Fighter II, which has sold 15.5 million units across its various versions since it launched back in 1991. It's worth pointing out that several Street Fighter characters appear in Smash Ultimate. Despite its Smash success, the game is still only the second best-selling Switch title. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe comes in at first at 19 million. And you know what? Smash and Mario Kart, they are proof positive that these evergreen titles, these kind of once-in-a-console generation titles that Nintendo can keep adding all kinds of content to, will keep selling. And they are games that bring a lot of people into them. The Smash series, I think, deserves all of its accolades and all of its success. And yes, I know there are a lot of lifers that have been watching EP for a long time that remember my consternation and my confusion with the whole idea of Smash Brothers when they first announced and first released on the N64 and even the GameCube game. I was like, why are all these cute characters hitting each other? I just didn't get it. And it took a few iterations for me to really understand, but this latest round on the Switch is just irrefutable, you know, and there's different characters from all different times, all different types of incredible games and franchises. So it is marvelous to see that people are showing up, and developers and publishers from around the industry are also showing up and showing their support to this incredible franchise that just keeps giving back. I always see Bill Trinan from Nintendo of America. You've seen him in tons of our interviews. You've seen him in a lot of Nintendo Direct videos. He's always playing Smash. And there's a guy that, you know, has to play it for work. And when he goes home and he boots up his Switch, he's playing Smash still. And it always warms my heart to see, boop, Bill Trinan is playing Smash Brothers right now. It's an incredible game. So congratulations to everybody involved with that. Now, it looks like we're going to be seeing a little less of the galaxy far, far away, at least on the big screen. More evidence has come in that Disney is planning to scale back the number of Star Wars movies. Speaking with BBC, Disney CEO Bob Iger says that they may have been too ambitious with their plans to release one new movie every year after they bought Lucasfilm in 2012. And when it comes to the franchise, less is more. Episode 9 is hitting theaters this December, but after that, the studio doesn't have any new Star Wars films on their schedule, so there's no telling how long we'll have to wait for more. That doesn't mean we won't be seeing the franchise on the small screen. They've got several new Star Wars projects coming to Disney Plus, starting with The Mandalorian next week. And somehow I've got to be able to watch that while we're in Japan. Somehow. I don't know how we're going to do this, but we're going to try to do it. And I'll give you my thoughts on The Mandalorian as soon as I possibly can. I think everything changes in this report if The Rise of Skywalker makes $2 billion. And it very well could. You know, people might want to show up for this. I know there's a lot of hesitation. There's a lot of wait and see. J.J. Abrams may pull off an incredible feat with this film. I know a lot of you are shaking your head right now and saying how, and you know, how is that even possible? But if they do that, then you can count on Disney and Lucasfilm changing their tune on this, and also the likelihood that lots of other people or JJ himself or somebody will come and sort of take the reins on more Star Wars features in a bigger way. My prediction is that The Mandalorian and the stuff that's happening on Disney Plus is the priority right now. And, you know, under the sort of collection of Kevin Feige and Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni, there's changes afoot on who is going to be supervising the whole Star Wars universe and the whole franchise. Not to dismiss Kathleen Kennedy or her contributions to the world, but it has been unbelievably calamitous and contentious, and it's made us cantankerous. And I think that we need to start to just love Star Wars again. Yeah? Yes? Yeah. Yes, we need to start loving Star Wars again. And Star Wars isn't the only big science fiction franchise that might want to take a big break. The new Terminator movie, Dark Fate, had a disappointing opening weekend, to say the least, only earning $20 million in North America and just over $100 million overseas. This is well below industry expectations for such a big budget movie. And all told, analysts are now predicting that the film could lose anywhere between $100 million and $130 million. This makes Dark Fate the fourth Terminator movie in a row to underperform at the box office, with the last successful entry, Terminator 2, landing almost 30 years ago. No word on what might happen next, but there's no fate but what we make. Now, I like this movie. Our review is up on Film Fury, and we aired it on Friday. Did you see it, Jason? Jason saw it. What'd you think? Yeah, it's a good movie. It's a good action movie. It certainly challenges a lot of what we had come to expect out of the story coming out of Terminator 2. I don't think that was a bad choice, but I completely understand people's anger towards it. Then I think there's some analogies to the way that Rian Johnson handled a lot of the Star Wars lore in The Last Jedi and how people felt there. There's also analogies to how David Fincher handled some of the characters in Aliens 3, and I get it. But there was some really cool lore work and some great production qualities in Dark Fate, and I'm dismayed that people aren't going to see the movie and appreciate a lot of that stuff. And because it won't get that support, I mean, this is kind of dead on the vine right here. I don't think this is going to, like, people's opinion aren't going to sway, and I see there's a lot of hate for this film out there online too. But I think that a lot more could have been built out of this. And I get the frustrations. We certainly called it out in our review that there was a lot of safe choices. There were a lot of safe choices in Dark Fate, a lot of, trying to remake previous Terminator vibes and Terminator movies, which I think was ill-conceived. It should have been better. It was good, but it should have been better. There's no doubt about it. But I can't, the actors and the characters are awesome in the movie. They're awesome. Mackenzie Davis especially. Holy crap. She is perfect in that role. And it was great to see Linda Hamilton and Arnold Schwarzenegger back too, and Edward Furlong. Let's move on. The one big Hollywood juggernaut that isn't slowing down and just keeps getting bigger and bigger is Marvel. Disney and Marvel Studios are officially moving forward with a third Ant-Man movie. Hurrah! Writer-director Peyton Reed is slated to return alongside stars Paul Rudd, Evangeline Lilly, and Michael Douglas. No release date has been set, but speaking with Collider, Douglas says that he expects filming to begin in early 2021, which means we'll likely be seeing the film in summer 2022. As always, Marvel currently has loads of other new movies in development, including Black Panther 2, Black Widow, the new Thor, and The Eternals, just to name a few. And I am super psyched about a new Ant-Man film. I didn't love the first one, but I came to love it on repeat viewings, and I thought there was a lot of great work in Ant-Man 2. There's certainly a smaller scale superhero film than the other Marvel titles. And honestly, like if you're programming Disney Plus and you're thinking of the heroes that would make great shows, Ant-Man just sort of screams out. Like, that would be great to just stay with these characters in San Francisco and visit them over 6 episodes and make kind of like a mini series. And that's kind of what these shows are, right? They're like long movies. They're $15 million to $20 million, $25 million episodes. They're massive budgets. That's what they're doing with the Winter Soldier and the Falcon movie, and the Scarlet Witch and Vision film. What's it called? Oh, the shows. Yeah, I mean, there's so much, confusion around the production quality and all that stuff, and it's deliberate. They want it to be at the same level as the theatrical experience. I think Ant-Man will be perfect for that. And honestly, if these shows are as good as the films, which I think is what they're building towards, not only in Marvel but in Star Wars, seeing a movie in the theaters is going to start to feel even more antiquated and less of a big deal if we can then just go to our iPhone and see something as epic with really cool characters and lots of cameos from these different other franchises and part of the whole sort of MCU like that, which I think is the plan. So long story short, psyched for more Ant-Man. I don't know, what do I want from it? I definitely, I like the vibe, I think what I want from Ant-Man is a better villain, like the best villain, because I think the first 2 Ant-Man films have kind of forgettable villains, good performances, but the powers that Ant-Man and the Wasp have are incredible, and I think that we need a comparable bad guy. I think, honestly, if we're being really fair about the MCU, that's been a common thing across a lot of the MCU movies. Thanos is amazing. I loved Killmonger. There's certainly some high points. Ultron actually was pretty damn terrific, and Loki is great. But, yeah, I think that the villain sort of efforts should be amped up, and Ant-Man would be a great I think a great place to not start because it's coming out in a while, but I think that would be a franchise that would directly benefit from a cooler villain and higher stakes. Keep the comedy, put as much Michael Pena as you want in there, but definitely make us be a little bit more freaked out about the stakes of Ant-Man coming out of the shrink ray, whatever it was called. I don't even know what it. The subatomic realm, thanks, Blake, and then seeing everybody vaporized and gone, that was incredible. And that completely changed that whole picture because it added this emotional weight that we hadn't really felt all the way because everything was so light and bubbly. And then when he comes out of the realm and he sees, where is everybody? That was super heavy. It's like the beginning of Endgame and Hawkeye, man. That was incredible too, where his whole family disappears. That's what we want. Not necessarily the heavy darkness, but the stakes, if they can be high like that. But let me know what you guys think of all of this Star Wars news. If you're happy that we're taking a break, if you're fired up for Rise of Skywalker, and what you want out of Ant-Man 3. I think that's great news. A lot of good news in the rundown today. That's it for the rundown. Let's take a look back at this day and everything cool. Welcome to This Day and Everything Cool for November 4th. On this day in 2002, Insomniac Games ratcheted up the action platformer genre. The original Ratchet and Clank game was released on the PlayStation 2 worldwide, introducing players to the anthropomorphic Lombax, Ratchet, and his robotic companion, Clank. The gameplay in Ratchet and Clank is all about combining the platforming genre with shooting. Players could traverse big and colorful environments in different ways like jumping, sliding, and jetpacking, and on top of that, you could shoot different enemies with loads of cool and unique weapons. This emphasis on shooting mechanics helped separate Ratchet and Clank from other 3D platformers and helped make the franchise and its characters one of the most recognizable parts of the PlayStation library. Sony and Insomniac continued working together on an entire series of Ratchet and Clank sequels and spin-offs, including a full remake of the original game for the PlayStation 4. The franchise has also been turned into a big-screen animated movie which hit theaters in 2016. All right, yesterday I had a very cool experience. I went to a local comic and toy show. I think it's called the Vancouver Comic and Toy Show. It's very literal. And I had a good time. It was at the Forum at the Pacific National Exhibition area in East Vancouver. And I cruised around and found some cool classic video games, which I'll be talking about pretty soon. And I stopped by the Toy Traders booth, and we have friends there. We've shot at Toy Traders, which is one of the coolest places that you can pick up toys in the Vancouver area. And Matthew, who runs the store there, who I've known for years, he's a great friend of the show, he said, I know how much you love Batman, and I would love it if you took one of these home with you. And he gave me this Batman statue, which he saw me admiring. I was admiring a lot of stuff. That Vancouver Comic and Toy Show, it had a lot of stuff for me. I was very, very excited to be there. But he said, why don't you take this Batman statue with you, and maybe it would look pretty cool on your desk. And I said, okay, that sounds cool to me. And so here it is, and I'll just unbox it. It's pretty straightforward, just a plastic cover around the statue itself. It has a pretty rad gargoyle front there that Batman is standing on, a little gargoyle mini statue. And I don't know who the artist is, but it's got a Neil Adams kind of super hyper realistic kind of vibe to it, and I just freaking love it. I also like the long bat ears, which represent an era in Batman history that I think was incredibly it was the darker area, right? It was what led up to Frank Miller kind of re-envisioning everything and shortening the ears in the 80s and making him even more of a badass, in contrast to the work that artists like Jim Aparo and especially Neil Adams were doing in the late 60s and the 70s. So this has got that kind of a vibe, although it has the more modern bat symbol where they took off the yellow. Incidentally, that yellow was always just used as a trademark thing, because they put the yellow around it because they couldn't figure out how to trademark just the bat symbol. But Batman, celebrating 80 years, 80 plus probably now, right? Oh yeah, it was 1939, so it was 80 years. Bam. So there it is. Thank you so much, Toy Traders. This Batman lives here now. And speaking of Batman, which I often am, the Batwoman TV show has continued on, and I've been able to watch a couple more episodes. I'm not fully caught up yet, but I wanted to sort of circle back and give you my thoughts on how things are progressing. I can tell you one thing that I've definitely noticed about this show. Ruby Rose looks like she was designed in a comic book. All of the angular kind of bone structure that she has, the facial mannerisms, the hair, she just looks so striking, and it's such a sharp look. Aesthetically, you can see why she was the right choice to be this character. She's still working on the performance. She's still working on the layers and the believability as I'm sort of entering into more of the episodes. And what we're finding out at the beginning of the season, and I don't want to spoil too much for people that haven't watched anything. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a bookmark in the review and come back and do a whole season review. It's been greenlit up to 22 episodes, so it'll be interesting to see how all of the performances kind of continue to evolve. But there is a familial drama at the center of what's going on at the beginning of Batwoman. There is this crazy Joker-esque character named Alice, is sort of in the mode of kind of a psychotic Alice in Wonderland, who has a gang killing all kinds of people in Gotham City. Bruce Wayne has disappeared, and there is a deep connection, a deep bond between Kate Kane and this Alice character. And the father is also involved in this. So without spoiling too much, you can probably figure out what it is. And I actually started to kind of jive on this relationship. It has some pretty cool depth to it. And I really am liking Dougray Scott as the father, who is also the leader of this group of the security force that is taking care of Gotham City. It feels like the cops are one step behind, but the security force is there. There's a lot of this privatized security running around the city, and it's a city that is constantly beat up. They shoot a lot of the exteriors in Chicago, so it gives it a sense of familiarity for those of us that are huge fans of the Nolanverse, and I think that was deliberate on the part of the producers. But what they've done is they've grunged up the Chicago exteriors, so you'll see tent cities and you'll see fire pits and stuff like that down sort of like banking streets, which is a nice juxtaposition. But I like Dougray Scott having to kind of grapple with this kind of broken relationship that he has with his with his daughter, with Kate Kane, who has trained to be in this security force, but decides to go her own route, partially because she's heartbroken, and certainly there's a treacly element in there that is a little bit too, it's a little too cute, a little too precious, and it doesn't really fit with the darkness that I think the Batwoman character kind of should elicit. But we have to remember it's a CW show, and I think the whole idea with these Arrowverse shows is that they're trying to be inclusive to an audience that may not watch a superhero show. And so there is a melodramatic kind of soap opera kind of quality to all of them. It's not just this not just this series. But I think that there's a little bit of a lightness with Batwoman that feels uncomfortable, particularly when everybody is talking about the darkness of the Bat. And what's also a little uncomfortable is the fact that Bruce Wayne and Batman have gone missing for years. And so everybody is hunting for that replacement, and everybody thinks that Ruby Rose and Kate Kane are Batman because she basically just steals Bruce Wayne's costume. And it isn't until the third episode that we start to see the red applied to the Bat logo and the red wig comes on. And I like the aesthetics. I think they're pretty cool. Not jaw-dropping, not like honestly, not even something at the quality of what Green Arrow did, the costuming for Green Arrow or the costuming for The Flash when it first came out. But it's okay. It's an okay beginning. I do like the shots of Batwoman racing around Gotham City on the bike, even though there's some CG kind of cheese happening around the cape and stuff. But there's definitely a cool energy around that, and there's some fun fight sequences and stuff, and all the gadgets are starting to come into play. And we've got Lucius Fox's son, Luke Fox, who's played by Cameron Johnson. He's pretty fun. There's some interesting stuff that's happening early on in the season where he's in the Batcave and he's talking with Batwoman, and he honestly has to rescue her fairly early in the season, which I thought maybe they pulled out a little bit too soon, but I thought it was pretty cool. He has to what's the electrical juice where you have to put the juice on somebody to get their heart going again? What's that called? Yeah, he's got there's a defibrillator. That's a hard word to say. Defibrillator in the bat suit, and he has to press the button from the cave to get her going again. I thought that was pretty cool. One thing I didn't like is that Tommy Elliott, Hush, is introduced into Batwoman very early on, and this is a major character. This is a heavy character with a lot of weight, a lot of resonance across the comic lore and the Batman lore, and he's kind of just dropped in, and he's kind of he's lightweight. He feels like he gets beat up by Batwoman too easily, and he's relying on his gadgets a little too much. And the anger that he's drumming up against Bruce Wayne, it just felt a little bit manufactured. So there's pieces of this that I like, and there's, aesthetically, I think there's lots of cool things to kind of dig. I don't read the Batwoman comics, so I don't have this like real deep, heavy connection to the comic lore, but I love the Batman sort of gloss. It does make sense, especially if CW is going to be introducing a Superman and Lois Lane show, that we should also start to hear about a Batman show, and there should be a Batman introduced into the series. It just feels weird and sort of incongruous that he's always talked about, but he's never there. It gives Batwoman, and they're always kind of reinforcing that she's the replacement and she's good, she's better because she's here. It just undermines her real value and her real place in there. Not that she has to be the lieutenant for Batman, but if they put Batman in and they're equals, it will be a better show, and they won't have to have this artifice there, which is all based on licensing and when they're going to make a Batman movie. And everybody knows that when they're watching the show. Somehow they work Superman into Supergirl, and it's been just fine. So I think we need to do that same kind of thing with Batman in Batwoman, and Batwoman will be a better show. I don't know if this is improved from the first episode, but I'm still intrigued and I'm still in, and I still like a lot of the pieces of this, and some of the stuff is a bit cheesy, which I kind of knew going into a CW superhero show. I'm going to give what I've seen so far a 7 out of 10. All right, you guys, it hasn't just been TV shows that I've been watching recently. I've also been playing a lot of games, and one of them is Concrete Genie. I remember getting a demo of Concrete Genie. It might have been at E3 in 2018. Then I kind of forgot about the game, and maybe it's because PlayStation wasn't at E3 this year, but it's been under my radar for a while. And then I started to see folks like Media Molecule congratulate the developers of this game on Twitter, and I went, oh, yeah, I got to get back to that. And I have to report that this is a magical game. This is absolutely a game that you should play with younger people in your family to introduce them to the magic that video games can provide and the magic that stories in video games can provide.
This is unbelievable.
You play this little boy in this town called Deska, this little fishing village where life has been stolen away from it, and everything is gray and dark and gloomy, and you are an artist. And what happens is you encounter this group of bullies, and they look through your art book and they rip it apart and put pages everywhere, and you escape to this lighthouse, and you encounter this little magical being called Luna, and in this lighthouse you discover that your artistic abilities are infused with sort of this magical ability, and you bring this little genie, this little concrete genie, to life with your artistic brushstrokes. And the way that I created art in this game is I used the DualShock 4 controller's motion control sensibility, and I would point the controller at different areas on walls on the screen, and I would choose from a bunch of different graffiti schematics to compose these sort of living animated little works, and it would bring back all kinds of color. And you're basically lighting up these sort of Christmas lights scattered throughout the town. And as you're bringing to life the different zones of Denska, you start to push away the darkness and all of these dark, thorny tendrils that have taken over different districts. And you do that from zone to zone to zone, all the while kind of outwitting and pushing back against the oppression of these bullies.
Don't be scared, Ash.
And this is where the game kind of elevated to another level, is what happens if you get kind of into these scenarios where you get captured by the bullies, and usually this is through cut sequences. One of the bullies might grab your giant brushstroke, and you'll have this sort of flash sequence, this hand-drawn illustrated sequence, which shows some of the reasons why these little kids, these bully kids, are acting the way that they are. And just that sort of beautiful empathetic streak that is rushing through the composition of this game, it was really marvelous. It adds this emotional underbelly and, a reason for this game to exist other than its cool mechanics. It's a platformer, it's an action-adventure game where you're not really threatened. You're not really, it's not like a loss of life type scenario. It's not Uncharted. You don't ever feel like the stakes are that high. But I didn't really care, because through the composition of these really cool living graffiti artistic works that you can create and craft on walls all through Denska are just so cool and so addictive.
Bravo! Yeah, good job.
Of course, you're not just creating these little scenic scenarios where you can add the moon or a rainbow or thunderclouds or whatever. You're also creating different kinds of genies with different kinds of latent abilities. Like you'll craft red ones that have the ability to burn different objects, so that'll allow you to access new areas. Or yellow ones which have electrical powers infused in them, and so they will turn on gadgets that you'll need to be able to access maybe higher areas within the city. Start up forklifts or something that will give you a ledge that you can climb up to so you can get across a wall that is a barrier to you. So there's some interesting little puzzle elements in there, and there's definitely lots of little sort of collectible hooks as well, like you might interact with a cat that pleases one of the concrete genies that you've created, or you collect a bunch of pages for your art book, and every time that you collect them there's actually a legitimate reward there. It gives you more customization options in the art that you're going to create throughout the game. Couple all of that with just beautiful artwork. I mean, this is a gorgeous, gorgeous game. Part of it with this great emphasis on adding all of this color to these gray, drab, monotone levels and worlds, but also the animations and the cut sequences on the faces of the kids, and all of these little sort of special effect flourishes that are happening, little butterflies and little magical lights flying all over the place. Absolutely gorgeous. The music is great as well. This is a very, very nice, enveloping experience.
Nice to meet you.
Now, the one thing that I didn't do, there's a VR component to Concrete Genie. I only played this on the flat screen, but I did play this with my daughter and I played it with my nephew. They both loved it. I didn't play it enough with either of them that I could record them and get a sort of distilled thought on what they thought of everything in the game, but I saw firsthand their smiles and their curiosity, and they were both sort of pointing me in directions of things that they wanted to do, and they were guiding me in the kinds of artwork that I was crafting within the game, and I could tell that they were entranced by this game, as I was.
We've got a lot more painting to do.
It's not a hardcore action adventure. It's definitely not going to challenge you, in your gamer skills, but I guarantee you it's going to transport you to a new world, and you are going to be impressed by this wonderful creative work. This is a beautiful game, and please don't overlook it, especially if you play PlayStation 4 games with any younger folks in your household. I think you are going to love this game. I'm going to give it an 8.5 out of 10. Super cool game, that Concrete Genie. If you haven't checked it out, you definitely have to. It is beautiful, especially if you've got family members that dig video games, as much as my family does. All right, I've been watching a few superhero TV shows, and one of them has been Watchmen on HBO, and this is a very different superhero show. Like Amazon's The Boys, this has been an amazing year for kind of deconstructing the myth of superheroes and sort of taking a look at the way that these stories are put together and the types of damage that superheroic characters and the resonance of their actions might have on a world that feels very familiar, even if this, as we know, is a lift on the incredible work that Alan Moore did in the 80s with Dave Gibbons. And then, I think it's fair to say that the Zack Snyder film was pretty damn cool at recreating a lot of the stuff that was in the original comic. Now, Damon Lindelof and his creative team on HBO for this show decided to take a totally different tactic here and create something that was set 35 years after the events of the original series and the repercussions of some of those events, and also sort of the emotional baggage that those events kind of created on characters that we were familiar with. And one of them is Jean Smart playing Agent Blake, the Silk Spectre character in episode 3. We get to focus on her and her relationship with Dr. Manhattan, who we haven't seen the real apart from these shots on Mars where he's this distant blue object with an itty-bitty tiny little penis, if we get a magnifying glass. This time there was no blue penises in episode 3. There was one last week, but it was like created as part of a stage play that Ozymandias was putting together. But this time we really focused on how damaged the Silk Spectre character is, and Jean Smart, I think, is phenomenal in this episode. She has joined the FBI, and she's got a task force to take down masked vigilantes. And early on in the episode, she actually she shoots at and debilitates a guy that looks just like Batman. His name is the Revenger, or just Revenger. And one of the characters asks, "Are you sure that the body armor was going to stop the shots?" And she doesn't even answer, because she doesn't care, and she handcuffs him to his to the gurney as he's being wheeled away to the hospital. She has got a take no bullshit kind of attitude, and she plays it wonderfully. But she still has this connection to Dr. Manhattan. So every once in a while, there's these little moments where she's in a phone booth that allows her to make calls to Mars and she's hoping that Dr. Manhattan is going to one day listen to them. And they actually set up the whole episode as if she's telling these elaborate jokes to Dr. Manhattan. And of course, a lot of the imagery and iconography that we're seeing throughout the episode ties to these twisted jokes that she's telling. All of that stuff is cool. She gets sent down to Tulsa, Oklahoma, where we've seen the last couple of episodes the emergence of this this Ku Klux Klan-like group that is doing some racial killings and killings of cops. One of them is one of the leads on the show, so I'm not going to spoil any of that. So she goes to the funeral and encounters some of the different police officers there, and she starts to pick apart all of the things that are going on. And there's some great interplay especially between Gene Smart and Regina King. I love that sort of combustible kind of relationship that's being built there. I also love seeing Tim Blake Nelson play off of Gene Smart as well. There's some great work in that whole sort of intercourse, that whole dialogue sequence that we see there. And then Jeremy Irons gets a nice beefy chunk of scenery to play with in this thing, in this particular episode. He even dons a familiar costume, which is pretty damn cool. So listen, this is a show with many layers, and like every episode makes you sit back and think about its connections to what we have known. And honestly, I've been busy with everything else that's been going on this fall, so I didn't allow myself time, and I regret to go back and read the issues of the original Watchmen comic. And I think that this show, if you haven't started to watch it yet, that's what I would totally recommend. Not because this is a one-to-one connection, and as I said in my previous episode review, what's amazing about this series is how freewheeling it is, and how much you don't know what is going to happen, and how much you're surprised by the stuff that is happening. I think this show is fantastic. I am having a really, really good time with it. I'm enjoying being challenged by it, and being shocked by it, and being surprised by it. It's riveting work. I may not like everything, because as we know, it's hard to keep any show sort of at a high bar all the way through from the first episode to the end of the season, or across multiple seasons. But so far, I've been really, really digging this. Looking forward to episode 4. But episode 3 gets another 9 out of 10 from me. All right, we love superheroes on EP. We even love them in 16-bit form.
Technology. I have the power to control your mind.
Do not adjust your TV sets. You're not looking at a primitive version of NetherRealm's Injustice franchise. Nope, this is Justice League Task Force, published by Sunsoft. Came out in 1995 for both the Genesis and the Super Nintendo. I took a look at this on the Sega Genesis, and it's my latest in my 16-bit superhero lineup. I've been looking at all kinds of classic superhero video games because I've always loved superhero video games, and I'm just filling in my library, collecting these carts and taking a look at these titles. Now, I've had Justice League Task Force since I think this was sent to us. I think it was probably sent to us for review back in 1995. I don't remember buying it, but I've always been a big fan of superheroes, so it's possible that I bought this sucker. And I played it over the years, but it's definitely not only a primitive-looking version of what Injustice became, but it's also a primitive fighter. You do play as some pretty incredible marquee superheroes and supervillains from the DC universe. Of course, Superman and Batman and Wonder Woman. You've got Aquaman in there and Green Arrow in there. You're facing against characters like Darkseid and Despero and Cheetah. It's got a story even. This is a game where you're choosing a character from the Justice League and you find yourself fighting against one of your allies, and then you realize that, wait a second, something's not quite right with this, and you eventually uncover the fact that Darkseid is behind all of this stuff. And then you got to defeat him after you've visited location after location. So you're in Atlantis, you're in Gotham City and Metropolis. You see the whole pantheon of cool different spaces and characters that you would find in the DC universe, which is pretty damn cool. Then, of course, you can get into some battles against a computer or battles against a human opponent, playing as any one of these different characters. And it's fun, even though it's incredibly crude and choppy. The special attacks are not as special as you would want them to be. They don't have anything like the mesmerizing cut sequences that you would find in Injustice, but there's still a charm to this game. It's still fun to revisit it. It's still fun to kind of play it in sort of this modern setting. It's cool to see Superman with his giant mullet. I actually like the artwork that they've got with Batman. It's so evocative of kind of the 70s and 80s Jim Aparo style Batman, which I kind of dig. I love the retroness of it all. Wonder Woman's costume. I like the goatee on Green Arrow. You know, like it's fun to kind of have this as a connection to days gone by, you know, in a simpler time with these DC superheroes. It's not going to blow your mind with its gameplay. You're mostly going to be laughing at it because it's so clunky and so rudimentary to play, but it still has its charms, for sure. It still will put a smile on your face if you're a superhero fanatic like I am. I think it's worth the pickup. I honestly do. I haven't played the Super Nintendo version, so I can't really do a comparison of which cartridge is more worth your time or your money, but I'm glad that I have Justice League Task Force in my collection. I will still go back to it and play it from time to time. It certainly makes me smile. I'm going to give Justice League Task Force a 7 out of 10. Now, the other show that I've been watching, and I'm only up to episode 3, and all of the episodes have been released for it, is the new Jack Ryan Season 2. I really enjoyed the first season, even though if, like all the Jack Ryan movies that have come before this have been a little bit improbable. They always, quite like a lot of the Tom Clancy video games that Ubisoft makes, they always mix in a touch of realism or a touch of authenticity in terms of the military kind of machine and the cool gadgets that everybody uses and the sort of interpolitical dilemmas that everybody has to face and navigate through in some interesting ways. And I felt that the games have benefited from that partnership, and clearly lots of players agree with me because the whole Tom Clancy relationship that Ubisoft has been building for a long time now has been incredibly successful for that company and for Tom Clancy as well. But I also feel like Jack Ryan as a character makes a lot of sense as a series because this is a character that has to evolve quickly in the movies because of time constraints, but I think that there's a lot of kind of growth that happens with the character. He is a bookworm at the beginning. If you watched the John Krasinski series for episode 1 or for season 1, he is a guy that's kind of thrust into action, even though he's ill-equipped for it and has to kind of find his way through it. And he does in the first season. It's a little bit unbelievable, some of the stuff that he has to do, but all I can say is the series is named after the character, so they're going to give him those hero moments. In season 2, we find out that because of his achievements in the previous year, his name carries a certain amount of weight, but also the character has a certain amount of ego about what he has accomplished and expectation working for the CIA and sort of calling the shots on what he wants to do. In this season, he is sent to Venezuela, and right from the get-go, Venezuela is portrayed as an incredibly hyper-violent, dangerous place, one of the most dangerous place on Earth because of oil reserves and the political kind of quagmire that the country is in and the questionable politics of the people in power. And right away we get to meet a U.S. senator that is placed down there as a liaison who is actually from Caracas, because we spend a lot of time in season 2 in Caracas, Venezuela. So we get to see some pretty cool spots in the city, and there's definitely a Narcos edge, a Narcos vibe, including the casting of a lot of Narcos actors. I love Narcos, by the way. If you haven't watched that series, definitely check that out. But, this show, unlike Narcos, where they intersperse some reality and some newsreel footage and all that stuff, everything is kind of, hyper real and over sensationalized and a little bit ridiculous. But nonetheless, enjoyable. Now, through these 3 episodes, we're introduced to Noomi Rapace and another actor. The guy, I forget his name, but he was in Game of Thrones with and I'm never going to remember the guy's I'm never going to remember the character's name. What's the guy's name? The guy that taught the Maisie Williams. the man with the man. I forget the character's name and I forget the actor's name, and I apologize for it. But he's amazing in this first few episodes. And Noomi Rapace plays this trained espionage agent who has to go up head to head against John Krasinski in some cool, spy versus spy kind of moments. There's some pretty brutal attacks that take place. One of them echoes Clear and Present Danger, I think, which was the second Harrison Ford movie where everybody gets trapped in a tiny corridor. Did Clear and Present Danger take place in Venezuela as well? It took place in a South American country. I can't remember where it was. I can't remember, but there is definitely a parable there, and I thought that was okay. I mean, it was such a memorable moment. I think Philip Noyce was the director of those movies back then. He did such a great job, and those action beats were incredible. I remember seeing that film with Harrison Ford in the theater and being shook by what I was watching. It was so terrifying. So of course, a series in 2019 is going to kind of tip its hat to that, and it does. SUVs get blown apart and toppled over, and comrades lose their life, which honestly, and the Narcos is kind of like this as well. It's so tense. You feel like at any moment, and there's an incredible sniper sequence in this as well. But you feel at any moment a character could die, and the violence that erupts. There's a lot of intrigue, and there's a lot of espionage, and there's a lot of clandestine eavesdropping that's going on, and people having secret conversations that are being recorded and stuff. There's a lot of that procedural stuff, also some military stuff, even in these first few episodes. But it always feels like any one of these people could die at any moment, except for Jack Ryan, who has the perfect hair and he has the tightest shirts, and he's Joe USA. He's carrying it well, which is kind of crazy, and it was kind of interesting casting. I think that the guy from The Office that had the cute relationship, the inter-office cute relationship, is now our badass Jack Ryan. But it kind of fits as well, right? He's supposed to be an everyman, even though John Krasinski is built like a superhero and he's taller than everybody else in the show. He just towers over everybody, so he looks invincible. But there's that kind of friendly, approachable sort of quality in his face. But he goes through hell, even in these first 3 episodes. I am in. I am the furthest away from this kind of content. I'm kind of a peacenik, I hope that people get along. So this kind of stuff isn't what I naturally gravitate towards in terms of what I consume, but I always seem to enjoy it, whether it's in video games, like Tom Clancy video games, and these Tom Clancy shows and movies. They're really fun, escapist entertainment. And I think that the Jack Ryan show has done a pretty good job at honoring that whole idea. I think you have to compartmentalize your political views and your views on the CIA's kind of interference with different countries around the world, and the way that stuff is kind of being painted a little bit. Although there are attempts by the production team here to kind of show, a normalcy and a joy of life with the people of Caracas, as well as some of the the insidious stuff that's happening politically as well. But beyond all of that, it's just fun, and it's tense, and it's well made, and it feels like you're watching a big budget movie every episode because Amazon is spending a fortune on this show. So I like the first season quite a bit, and I'm digging what I've seen. I'm digging what I've been seeing so far in season 2. I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. All right. That is going to do it for our show today. We have to end things a little bit earlier today, but you know what I'm going to do is I'll take a few questions or comments if anybody's got any comments or anything that they want to say or bring up. Hip Hop Dan was asking if I watched any of the BlizzCon stuff. I watched the stuff that we covered in EP. I wasn't able to kind of stay with all of the announcements and all that stuff. I did see the apology that the CEO of Blizzard gave out there. And, tough situation, but honestly, I feel like every American company should be sort of front and center saying, no, we believe in the freedom of speech. That's the backbone of American culture and Canadian culture, and people should be able to say what they want to say. As long as it's done and it's framed in a non-threatening way. It's very weird. And Blizzard put themselves into a very, very weird position. But I think the software that they're working on, the Overwatch ideas and the Diablo 4 ideas and the little bits of footage that we're starting to see about all this stuff, I'm super excited about that. And hopefully they can turn the corner with and make good on some of these promises and some of these apologies and let people have the freedom to express themselves the way they want to. I kind of recognize the idea that when they're putting on a big gaming event, they want to keep it to the game itself. But apart from that, people's personal opinions and expressions on Twitter or any of their own sort of private social media platforms should be free. They should be able to express themselves. Especially with the topic. This whole topic of Hong Kong and China, especially with this. This is, it's crazy. Let's see what we got here. So many of these shows feel like I've seen them before. I can already guess how they end up. I don't know what you're talking about. Was it Batwoman, or was it Jack Ryan, or was it definitely not Watchmen? You don't know where you're going with Watchmen. No, I checked out the Metacritic on Death Stranding, and Sony hasn't. They didn't have tons of codes out of PlayStation Canada, so they sent it to some people. But we don't always get tons and tons of codes in Canada. That's kind of par for the course up in the country. There aren't as many outlets in the country, and so needless to say, I haven't got the game yet, but I have been curious about what people have been talking about with the title, and I can't wait to check it out myself. How are you feeling? Marco's the one that was asking the question. How are you feeling?
I ordered it.
Yeah.
I rarely pre-order games, and I pre-ordered it, so I'm in.
Yeah, Marco's in. He pre-ordered it.
I think what's happened is to be expected, and I'm just curious about your opinion and everyone's opinion when they actually have it, because it's a different, from the sounds of it, it's a different experience, but not unlike what Kojima's done.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's a bit weird that everybody didn't get the game. I feel like it was a little curated on how the game went out, and that's a bit problematic for me. But you know what? I'm a huge Kojima fan, and I've loved a lot of the games, and his esoteric choices are cool, and I love that the guy makes art, and he endeavors to, and he gets a whole bunch of incredible people to work together in that direction, which is amazing. So we'll see. I'm very, very psyched to play. I might not be able to play it till I get back from Japan, which will be weird, but because I'm not bringing the PlayStation 4 with me. But it is definitely what I'm looking forward to.
Some people have gotten codes, but they've been limited in terms of when they can review.
Yeah.
It's really odd.
Yes.
Some are saying you can review now, and then some are saying, well, you can only review later, which is like.
Yeah, Marco's talking about some of the kind of the rules that have been laid out with people being able to say what and when and where. Yeah, it's strange. Yeah, I would have something if we weren't going to Japan. We'd leave on Wednesday, and this is what I wanted to kind of wrap up the show with, and I will in a sec. I'm going to answer this question right here. Vic, would you play Booger Man for 16-bit superheroes? I recommend the Genesis version. This is from YC Super Bob. I have to now go find Booger Man. What the hell did I just find? I picked up Blackthorn at the Vancouver Comic and Toys. They actually were a ton of video games there. So I picked up Blackthorn, Urban Strike, and I picked up Metal Gear for the NES, which I'd only ever had as part of the collection on Metal Gear 3 Subsistence, I think. And I picked up another couple of old NES games as well. But now I'll have to go and find Booger Man. That sounds great. It sounds like a great addition to 60-bit superheroes, which has been such a fun, thing for me to do this year. It's been a real blast to play all those games. Going to check out the new season of Castle Rock, Tyler Dubb. Maybe. There's a lot of shows. I'm trying to keep up with all this stuff. But you know what? I feel like now it is. I've got the Super Lucky sale coming up for Switch. Pokemon Sword and Shield for Switch. There might be a couple of other Switch titles, and I am bringing the Switch on the road because you can do that. Jedi Fallen Order and Death Stranding. It feels like those are the biggie. Oh, and Need for Speed. And there's probably a few others that I'm forgetting about, but it feels like we've gone through the gamut, the big releases of 2019. But as always, if you are watching this in archive form, you can always tweet me or you can comment below on any games that you think I should check out and see. It was actually, I think people were, in addition to me seeing the congratulations around Concrete Genie, I was getting people asking me if I was going to review the game, and that definitely got my head swiveling towards it, and boy, was I glad that I did. That game is amazing. Dr. Gamelove got Luigi's Mansion 3 in the mail today, but I'm holding off and playing to watch this. Dr. Gamelove, that is very sweet. I can't wait to hear your reactions on Luigi's Mansion 3. It is total candy. Yeah, it's like Halloween candy. It is so damn good. It's such a fun game. Let's see. Starlord said, I am Canada's Jack Ryan. Rick Savage wants to know what I think about Death Stranding. I haven't played it yet, man. I don't have a question. I don't have a reply to that right yet. Going to check out the new season of Castle Rock. Okay, I'll try. What's the Japan trip for? We are going to is it the finals that we're going to, Blake? We're getting up there. It's the Rainbow Six Siege tournament that's happening on the weekend. We're getting close to the end. This is the first time that they're putting on a big tournament in Japan. I know that UB is incredibly excited about this. And we're actually going south to Nagoya, so we're landing in Tokyo and going to a place called Tokoname. And so we'll be doing some reports and some interviews and maybe shooting a little bit of the street scene and the culture. And then we're trying to set up some other studio visits and interviews with some really cool creative people that are overseas out there. And I'll be shooting some reviews on the run, literally on the run in Japan. Which should be really, really fun. We'll have some cool backgrounds. I might do a little toy shopping while I'm out there, too. Will I do a review of Death Stranding this week? I don't think so. But I am seeing The Irishman. So I'll have a review of The Irishman, and I might have time for one more review before we get on the plane. But just so everybody's aware, we're taking a little break from EP Live, obviously, as we're going to be away from the studio. So no show this Wednesday and no show on Friday, and then all next week we're going to be gone as well. So it'll probably be, let me look at my calendar here. It'll be November 18th, I think, will be the next episode of EP Live. Don't know who the guest is going to be yet because I've got a little bit of time to kind of work all that out, but we will still be posting lots of stuff from the channel. I may even live stream off of the new phone because I picked up, but it'll be weird timing. It's 16 hours ahead over in Japan, so I don't know if you guys will be up. I picked up the iPhone 11 Pro Max, and I'll have some thoughts on using this as well. If you follow me on Instagram, it's Batwing, you'll see some of the pictures that I've been taking. It's been blowing me away. And actually, did you run any of the footage from the Vancouver comic show? Yeah, I shot all that stuff on the phone too. It's unbelievable. I can't believe the cameras in our pockets now. It's really crazy. And also, you should hit the Discord. Taz is talking about that. Can somebody share the link to our Discord in the chat here? That would be awesome. Let's see what we got here. Please take a picture of the Gundam statue when you have a chance from Ryoga 316. We did that. When we did that, we did the making of Evil Within. So we were at the studio that's on the same island that the Gundam statue, the mall where the Gundam statue is. So we stayed like literally a block away from that. I took a ton of photos. I'm sure we posted some of that stuff on our social media back then. I'm definitely going to get to Akihabara. Blake, have you ever been to Akihabara before? You been? Yes? Okay, cool. You're going to have to put up with me freaking out over all the Japanese toys and games, okay? All right, you guys. It has been a crazy few weeks. We've made a lot of content, a lot of EP Lives. It's going to be weird to take a break, but we'll have fun. We'll have a crazy adventure, and we'll have some good content for you guys. And then please come back on November 18th when EP Live returns. thank you all for watching and supporting and for being there and for all your kind suggestions and thoughts and just for rocking. All right? We'll see you guys soon. And until then, make sure you play forever.